Probin, and I am the Early Childhood Literacy Instructor with the Outreach team.
Good morning, my name is Ariel Potter and I'm the Outreach Coordinator.
Hi, I'm Kelsey Goodwin and I'm the Teaching Fellow at the Island School, and we're the research advisors for this project.
I'm Adam Figler. I'm Nolan Delahy.
I'm Alma Gould.
I'm Ruth Taylor.
I'm Matt Ayala.
I'm Lily Ward.
I'm Lily Russian.
And I'm Julia Igo. Welcome and good morning, everybody. We are the Buddy Reading Program. The Buddy Reading Research Program was created to fulfill a community ask by the Deep Creek community to support reading growth in the primary school students. A community ask is a direct request made to the Island School from the community. We are the third semester of the Buddy Reading Program here at the Island School. What makes our research project so unique is we have the opportunity to work directly with the Deep Creek community and immerse ourselves in Bahamian culture. Our research participants are primary school students, making our work ultimately extremely rewarding. Education is incredibly important. According to a statistics study in 2012, 35% of Bahamian students receive E or lower grades in school. Further, it has been proven that students who read 15 minutes per day will increase their literacy skills, and students who read 30 minutes or more per day will be the ones at the top of their classes.
If struggling readers are not identified and given support at a young age, they are far more unlikely to graduate high school. In fact, 82% of students who failed an English class in 6th grade did not graduate high school. This is because reading is necessary for almost everything in school. As you can see, students are constantly exposed to words at Deep Creek Primary School. On the right, you can see a board in the courtyard, and on the left, you can see vocabulary words. Think about how much you read on a daily basis. You read street signs, textbooks, instructions, and you're probably reading this slide right now. The purpose of our study was to see how minimally trained tutors such as ourselves could positively impact the literacy skills of the Deep Creek Primary School students. For our research, we were each assigned 2 buddies and met with them weekly. One buddy was in between the ages of 5 and 9, which is grades 1 through 3, and one buddy was in between the ages of 10 through 12, which is grades 4 through 6. As Julia said, the more students read, the better they get at it. Our hypothesis for our research was that if we read with our buddies weekly, their reading skills will improve.
Our project implemented action research. Action research is when teachers or other educators take data based on their students' performances in order to enhance their techniques and provide information for other educators to learn from. There are 3 main principles to action research, which have all been identified in the Belmont Report. The Belmont Report was created in the 1970s in order to outline ethical principles for research involving human participants. The 3 main ethical principles are respect, beneficence, and justice. First, respect in our project meant practicing confidentiality, especially since we were working with young students. This means not discussing data in casual conversations or on social media. Second, beneficence meant making sure our project does not harm or negatively impact our students in any way. Finally, justice meant that we decided not to have a control group, since having a control group would interfere with students' learning by putting them in the control group and intentionally withholding extra support. The main goal of our project is to support reading growth at the primary school, and withholding that extra support would not have done so.
Like Lily Russian said, our goal was to see whether we, minimally trained tutors, could improve the reading growth of students at risk of reading delays. Our training involved learning about the 5 essential elements of literacy, also known as the Big 5. Also, we used a sound chart to build skills in our buddies. We sung the alphabet, we sounded out letters. For example, A makes a sound and B makes a sound B, and we created words with it. For example, the letters B-A-T form the word bat. Phonemic awareness is the ability to hear the individual sounds in words, and phonics is the ability to understand that sounds and letters link. For example, sheep is sh-e-p, sheep. Can I get a volunteer, please? Can you sound out, then read this word, please?
Cat.
Awesome. You showed phonemic awareness and phonics skills. You sounded out the word and said it correctly, yet young students struggle to distinguish the individual sounds and words. The three other elements were fluency, the ability to read accurately, comprehension, the ability to understand what was read, and vocabulary, the knowledge of words. We applied the Big Five when we worked with our buddies at the primary school.
For the past 6.5 weeks, on Mondays and Thursdays, we went to the Deep Creek Primary School. Our day began with us eating lunch with the students. After this, we spent time with them. Whether we were playing basketball, baseball, or just talking, we were bonding and forming relationships with the students. Before we even met them, the students took tests called running records. You can see one right here. The name is blurred out for confidentiality purposes. As you can see, the student read a passage to a teacher, while the teacher assessed them on many different literacy skills. They assessed them using these marks: accurate reading, omission, substitution, insertion, self-correction, repetitions, and problem solving. You can see that 3 of these 7 marks were counted as errors. This creates an error rate, which you can see here is 1 error for every 16 words read, as well as an accuracy rate, which is 93% on this example, and a self-correction rate, which is 1 self-correction for every 9 errors here. Again, in early November, the same students took another running records test so we can measure their growth. The next part of our routine with the students was the reading session. We began this part of the day by asking students how they feel on our smiley face scale. A slip of paper with a smiley, straight, and frowny face on it. The smiley face scale is a Likert scale model. The Likert scale model is a scale used to measure feelings and attitudes towards research conducted. The reading session was made up of 3 different stations: a literacy skills game, read aloud, and tablet reading. We rotated between these 3. The stations, which were 15 to 20 minutes long, focused on building elements from the Big Five. The literacy skills game is where a student will play a literacy skills based game with one of us, their buddies. This built phonemic awareness and phonics skills. The second station was read aloud. This is where we would pick out a book for our buddy and read it to them while asking them questions in the story. This built comprehension and vocabulary skills. The last station was tablet reading. This is where a student would read to us on a tablet using a software called RazKids. This is the RazKids home screen right here. RazKids suggests a book to the student to read to us based on their reading level. This built fluency and accuracy in our buddies' reading skills. At the end of the day, we asked students how they feel on the Likert scale model, the smiley face scale.
So what did we find? These graphs show our attitudes towards reading on the very first day of our program and the most recent day of our program. On the first day of our program, 75% of our buddies chose the smiley face, indicating that they were happy about reading. On the most recent day of our program, 92% of our buddies chose the smiley face. The colors in the pie chart align with the colors on the smiley face scale. As you can see, a majority of our buddies were happier about reading by the end of our program. This graph shows the results of the lower primary school's running records. On the x-axis are the students' names, which have been replaced with numbers for confidentiality reasons. On the y-axis are the reading levels that your buddy can score up to, A being the lowest possible reading level and Z being the highest. As you can see, the blue bars on the graph represent the students' tests that they took at the beginning of the semester, and the orange bars represent the students' post-test that they took as of last week. This graph shows the upper primary school's running records results. As you can see, the majority of the blue bars are smaller than the orange bars, indicating that the students scored higher at the end of our program. The top performing student grew 5 reading levels by the end of our program. On average, students grow 1.56 reading levels, and 5 out of the 16 students grew 3 or more reading levels.
Before Adam discussed our findings, it is important to acknowledge some of the challenges we encountered this semester. Logistically coordinating the 2 busy schedules of the island school and the primary school proved difficult. often resulting in the need to be flexible and adjusting our expectations for the day. Due to these complications, we are unable to work with grades 4 through 6 as much as we anticipated. Typically, the educators working with these students. Additionally, we found it challenging working with grades 1 through 3. As early readers, they require a certain level of specialized strategy and guidance that we, as minimally trained tutors, were unable to fully support them with. Typically, the educators working with these students have been trained for several years, where we only had 6 weeks and we're learning as we went. Despite these challenges, we still saw growth in these students' reading skills and attitudes towards reading.
We are really excited about our results. Here's what they mean. In terms of attitude, we found a 17% increase in green smiley faces occurring at the end of each session, resulting in 92% of our students by the end of the study having positive attitudes towards reading. Gauging attitudes toward reading was important to our study because students that enjoy reading are more motivated to keep reading and potentially read on their own. This relates back to one of the fundamental statistics that guided our research. Students that read at least 15 minutes per day will show more improvement in their academic growth than those who don't. As you saw in our running records graphs, most of our students improved their reading levels. Most of our students improved their reading levels over the course of the semester. We found that students that started at a higher reading level improved their reading levels more than those that started at a lower reading level. These younger students that started at a lower reading level and didn't necessarily improve a whole reading level still showed improvement in things like accuracy rate and error rate. As you can see, this is one of our students' actual running record statistics. This is one of our students' actual running record statistics. The top is the pre-test and the bottom is the improved post-test. As you can see, this student stayed at the reading level A throughout the semester, but their accuracy rate went from 92% to 97%, and their error rate went from 1 error for every 13 words to 1 error every 39 words. These results are encouraging, and it must be acknowledged that the Deep Creek primary school teachers definitely played a major role in these students' improvement, and we were likely only a small part of their growth. We saw through our research, we learned so much about how important reading is to students' education and their academic success. We also had the unique opportunity to immerse ourselves in Bahamian culture as we formed meaningful relationships with our students. Looking back at our research project, we were able to accept our hypothesis because most of our students improved their literacy skills throughout the semester. Also, our students ended the semester with better attitudes towards reading, both of which are successes.
We'd like to thank all the people that helped make this research project possible. Our research advisors, Ariel Potter, Kelsey Goodwin, Kim Probin, and Chili Sample. A special thank you to Candace Britton, Tamika Groves, Dr. Laura McCartney, and Phoebe Hanna. But most importantly, we'd like to thank the Deep Creek Primary School teachers and students. Thank you. Any questions?
There's a big range in the improvement of the students. What do you attribute that to?
Can you ask the question one more time?
There was a big range in the improvement of some of the students. Some improved marginally, some improved a lot. Just why do you think that was?
So we had two graphs. We had lower primary and upper primary. On the lower primary, we saw only a few students had a large growth, but some of the students had not even grown. Adam said, Students who were in the upper primary who had those basic reading skills were able to grow faster than the younger primary because we had to start by teaching them the basic reading skills.
Adding on to that, I think it was partially dependent on the buddy that you were working with. Each buddy had a different experience with different like learning activities that we did, like the literacy skills practice, the read aloud, and the tablet reading. So I think it is largely dependent on the student.
Following up on that thought, were there any children who actually had diagnosed learning differences or disabilities that you had to take into consideration, or diagnosed or suspected learning differences or disabilities that you had to take into consideration when you were working with them?
The question was if we had some students with learning disabilities. My student had Down syndrome, which definitely could made my teaching them a little more difficult. But there's a learning specialist at the school, and I did talk with her to kind of figure out what the best method was for working with that student.
As you all exit this program in a few weeks, how do you pass on, you've got the data, but how do you pass on your best practices about those students to the next semester coming in? What's the consistency there, or how do you plan for that?
So the question was, how are we going to pass on our work with the students that we did this semester? So after every session at the primary school, we filled out a reflection sheet on what our buddy did well, what they struggled with, and how the day went all around. And our advisors keep this instruction sheet, and we actually got to see some of those sheets of our buddies, and this allowed us to get introduced to our buddy and work with them further. We also got to see past running records, and so just being able to use our work to gauge what our buddies have done in the past for future semesters is how we're going to pass that on.
I'm wondering how you know that the smiley face rate increased because of the reading and not because you had lunch with them and an activity before the reading.
So the question was, how do we know that the smiley face scale, what they were indicating, was about reading and not about the activities we did with them the hour before? Yes, we had a really fun time in the hour before playing with them. I think that we all feel that was one of the most important and enjoyable parts of our project because we were really able to bond with these kids. But we asked the question specifically, how are you feeling about reading today? So these kids really knew when we were going into this classroom, the goal was to read. So asking the specific question helps us gauge that it was just about reading.
Just adding on to that a little bit, we also at the beginning of the session asked how they felt in general. And so that was more based on how much fun they had and maybe just how they were doing that day. And so this second question was after the reading session. So it was after we had read for about an hour or done reading games for about an hour. So that's where that comes in. It's obviously maybe it is how they're feeling that day, but most of it is how they feel about reading.
As far as the books that were concerned for you, did you get the books from the library of the school? Did you guys provide more books or materials for them? Or did you have a range of different books or stories?
Yes, so we brought in books to the primary school. The outreach program supplies us. We have special books that we bring out. I don't know if you're referring, every research team does a legacy project, and right now you may have gotten an email. We're doing a legacy project where we're donating books to the primary school and Deep Creek Middle School. You can definitely come up to us and ask us later more about that. All donations will be taken in the faculty office for drop-off.